Welcome to Life Worship Center, where we meet you where you are. Thank you for joining us today. In a moment, we will sing a few songs and receive a message from today's speaker. If this is your first time, welcome. Please see a First Impressions member for a special gift. Again, welcome. And here are today's announcements.
Hello, I'm Mimi Taylor, and welcome to Included. This is our way of keeping you informed of what God is doing here at Life Worship Center.
Join us on Saturday, May 9th at 11 a.m. for our Mother-Daughter Sip and Paint virtual Zoom party. You will have the opportunity to sip on your best lemonade tea while painting with your mother and or daughter. Text PAINT to 919-756-7933 to register for all other instructions. There will be a $20 fee that will cover your paint kit and the Zoom link for your painting instructor. Let's paint this one for the ages. Tag Emerge and Extreme Ministries would like to acknowledge graduates. If you have a child that is graduating from pre-K, 5th grade, 8th grade, 12th grade, or college, please send an email to ajames@rccraleigh.org. That includes your child's name, a picture, what grade they are graduating from, and any accomplishments that they may have had this year. All students need to be submitted by May 13th, 2020. Let's get fit together. Do Fitness Challenge begins on May 2nd and goes until August 2nd. Virtual Zoom fitness classes will be held every Saturday at 9 a.m. and Thursdays at 7 p.m. There'll be weekly fitness challenges and inspiring nutritional experts on healthy eating habits. Hear from experts regarding healthy eating, inspiring challenges weekly to help you get to your fitness goals. Water bottle challenge, sit-up challenge, push-up bar challenge, and more. Sync your fitness devices, Fitbit, Apple Health app, Samsung Health, Polar Beat to capture your daily fitness moves. To join the challenge, every participant must submit a current photo by May 2nd and last photo on August 1st. Let's get moving towards a healthier life. Here at LWC, we would like to wish everyone celebrating a birthday in the month of May a very happy birthday. We pray that whatever you ask for, may you receive, whatever you wish for, may it come true, and whatever you seek, may you find. Again, we would like to wish you a very happy birthday. And to all those celebrating an anniversary in the month of May, happy anniversary. May your day be filled with love, joy, peace, and prosperity. LWC wishes you a happy anniversary.
Thanks for watching. You're now included.
Well, good evening, family. God bless you. And welcome back to our Bible study, Blended Families, where we're talking about relationships. And the topic, again, has been blended families with relationships. And we started on a special assignment last week. We talked about how difficult is it to bring in children into a relationship. And also when you bring two different worlds together who have their own set of rules, their own way of thinking, and now you're bringing them to one household. Last week we were enlightened by the Pryors, and they did an awesome job. And by popular demand and by your request, thank you by the way, we welcome them back into this week. We have Deacon Darrell and Pastor Renata Pryor. God bless you, and thank you all for coming back. Amen. We pray that you all have a blessed week. So we're going to give a recap from last week, and then we're going to jump right into tonight. There's a lot of questions that came out from last week, and then there's some things that we didn't get a chance to talk about last week that's from the study that we want to share with you. Okay. And also, while you're there, if you like what you're seeing and like what you're hearing, why don't you share this site? Hit that bell, share that button, and like us. Sign up. So last week, we gave the scripture from Colossians, and it says, bear with each other and forgive each other. Whatever grievances you may have against one another, forgive as the Lord has forgiven you. And we also talked about the blended family, and we asked, what is the definition of a blended family? And a blended family is where one or two of the spouses have been previously married. And Deacon Pryor, we understand from last week that you have been married previously. Yes. And then we talked about the characteristics, and we gave the French term, which is mouvance, broucher, mouvance, maison, which means if the dough isn't good, nothing else will matter. We talked about relationships being sticky. Uh-huh. We said the relationships get sticky and hard to deal with at times. Yeah. And you guys can attest to it.
Yes.
We also said that by wisdom, a house is built, and through understanding, it is established.
That's right.
Proverbs 24 and 30. And then right before we went out with the questions, we talked about the stages of the blended family. And the first stage was the fantasy stage. Unrealistic expectations.
Yes.
And then we talked about the factual stage is when reality sets in. And so we want to pick up from there tonight as we move into the next topic, causes. Causes. Some recipes are not as easily as they seem. No. Would you agree?
I agree, yes.
Especially when many ingredients are added to the mixture. Mm-hmm. And in situations where there has been a divorce, and there are other members of the family or opposite members of the family who are also involved. You have other parents from other relationships. You have children from other relationships. And one of the major difficulties is establishing the lines of authority with children, especially when they spend times with their natural parents. And so that brings things about. It can be difficult. What makes it good is when we have open lines of communications with both sets of parents are involved in the decision making for the children. Because one of the things that we know, and we're going to talk about tonight, that brings hardship on relationship is the broken lines of authority.
Yes.
Who has the say so?
Yes.
Here's some statistics that the Census Bureau says. They says there are 1,300 new step families forming every day. Wow. It's a lot.
Yes.
Over 50% of the U.S. families are remarried or recoupled. The average American family marriage lasts about 7 years. And how long have you guys made it?
We are going on 11.
Yeah. Going on 11. 1 out of
10 on the books, and 11 on the way.
1 out of every 2 marriages end in divorce. 75% of people who get divorced remarry. 66% of those living together or remarried break up, especially when children are involved.
Yeah.
80% of remarried or recoupled partners have careers. Both have careers. And so that also puts strain on the relationship. And here's the last statistic. 50% of the 60 million children under the age of 13 are currently living with one biological parent, that the parent may have a different partner than the biological parent. And so with that being said, we want to talk tonight about that. Talk to us tonight about how you establish the lines of authority when it came to your household and children. We hit on it some last week, but we want to talk a little bit more in depth tonight about establishing those lines of authority. Who has to say so? Because you and I talked before. You have an 18-year-old son. Whenever he was 16 or 17, he bought an air gun. Your decision was what? First, what was your first take on it?
My first take on it was I didn't like the way he went about doing it.
Okay.
It was brought into his mom's home.
Okay.
With from a friend.
Okay.
And it came with no authority. So when you put something like that in a child's hand, especially a 16-year-old boy, especially a 16-year-old black male, it has to come with, first of all, authority and instruction. And he didn't receive instruction on that.
Why?
You know, I can't speak for the other household. I can only react to or tell you how I reacted once I found out that he had it.
Okay.
And I felt that that was a pure telling sign that it was time for me to reach out and pull him in.
Okay. So now he has the gun. Obviously, we're going to allude to, allegedly, the other parent agreed to him having the gun.
No, I don't think that they knew either.
Oh, okay.
So it was a case where he brought it in, and I received a phone call from my youngest telling me about the situation.
Okay.
So I immediately got on the phone with him and instructed him and told him as he walked back down the street, as I instructed him to take it back where he got it from.
Okay.
And I stayed on the phone with him the whole time.
Okay.
And heard the transaction of him giving it back to his friend.
Okay.
And I just talked to him about, it was around the time of Trayvon Martin. And I was just really just going in on him, trying to get him to understand that when you walk down the street with, whether it be a BB gun or air gun,
anything that resembles a gun,
you put yourself in danger. And I told him I was very disappointed, and he could tell I was vividly upset. Because he was carelessly walking down the street with it, so anyone could have mistakenly, assumed any situation on him. And I instructed him to put it in a bag and to go back down the street and to give it back to the friend that he got it from.
Okay.
And at that point, I had talked to Renata, and we both reached out to mother and stepdad. And we told them what took place. And to our surprise, they were surprised too.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it was a thing where young boy, do things like that. And, and we just took matters into straightening it out and talking to him about it.
Okay. Very good. Here's some of the major causes for a marriage the first time around. Number one is an immature spouse. Number two, sexual difficulties. Number three, relatives. Number four, value systems. Number five, social adjustments. Would you spend just a few moments and not go into exactly what things were, but could you talk to us about what led to your first separation?
What led to my first separation, my first marriage, I think I married very young. I was very immature, and I had my visions and my goals in mind on what I wanted and where I wanted to be, and I didn't communicate those very well. So I was running ahead, and the other person was kind of lagging back, and I had no patience. And I did not know how to communicate that, or to communicate my frustrations and communicate or be patient and to see what may transpire. And I just grew further and further frustrated. I think things were not lining up, and communication just plays a big part in that. If you don't know how to communicate effectively, it just leads to a downward spiral.
Okay, very good. The major causes of failure for a second marriage is child rearing, financial difficulties, which y'all have no problem with, relatives, value systems, and sharing tasks. Pastor Renata,
Yes.
tell us a little bit about how you guys have made his next time around, but your first time around? How have you not allowed that to interfere with where you are now? How have you made it work?
I would have to say it's been more Daryl, because I came in, because this is my first, so of course I came in fantasy land. And so he was past fantasy. So I'm trying to have this, I remember when we got married, and you think of all the things or what you've seen or what you believe that a marriage should look like, and we get married, we have this beautiful wedding on the beach, and so at night I'm like, it's me. And so we did it on a cruise, so we had all our family and friends, and he wants to go back out and hang out with his friends. I'm like, no, we're going to be secluded for the rest of this trip. Dinners, breakfast, lunch is going to be to this bed. And he had moved past the fantasy part. And so, and that's an example, but that's the way everything went for us. And so for me, I had to grow up a little fast.
Okay.
I feel like I missed a lot of the fantasy. I got pushed out of fantasy land because I didn't get what they call it, the romancing stage. I missed that because he had been through it, and he was, I won't put words in his mouth, but I can tell you what I felt that he was over it. It was like, let's get to the vision. Let's start doing the marriage. Let's start figuring out the children. Let's start figuring out the bills. Let's start figuring out the job. Let's start figuring out. And I'm sitting like, we don't have to start none of this now. We're new. Let's just stay in the bed all day. Let's hug. Let's touch. Let's hold on to each other. Let's never leave the house. And he's just looking at me like, that's not happening. So for me, I got pushed and thrust into the second phase. And so everything for me was a learning lesson. I felt like I was always on the butt end of a learning lesson. And I would ask him all the time, well, how did you do this? Or how did you do that? And he's like, I'm not going to compare. And that was my biggest, probably the first 2 years of my marriage, is trying to make sure that this one didn't fail because he had failed. So these unmet or these unrealized expectations kept me in anxiety to make sure that this worked. I'm going to do whatever I can to make this work because the last one failed. And I was new. And like I said, it's my first one. And I came from a family, my parents, as well as his parents, only had one marriage. My parents were married for 38 years before my father passed. And his parents were married over 45 years before his mom passed. And so we come from these two things that this is a covenant and it's not broken. So I come in with all these ideas, and so it was very difficult, I think, for me because I didn't get a chance to romanticize.
So what steps did you take? Because we're interested in what steps did you take to get over not being romanced?
I would say my first step was I had to step back and learn how to be a bride or be a wife.
What does that mean in your terms?
In my terms, I had to step back and honestly understand what does God mean by I'm His bride. For me, I had to step back and understand what does that mean. It's not just we now stay in the house together, but I had to not only step up as a wife, but I had to step up as a mom at the same time. And so for me, not only was I not married, but now I didn't have children. So now I'm having to step up as a wife, a mother, and the level of responsibilities and all of those things. So my first step was really to get around married couples. I got around as many married couples as I could, the thriving ones, not just the ones that look good on the outside, but I would spend time inside learning how a wife treats her husband. I would pay attention and be very observant, and I would make sure that was my first step. I think my second step. My first step, of course, was God, just trying to understand what is a bride. Second step was getting around nothing but women who were working, women who were mothers, and women who were wives. And so I made sure I got around those type of women so that I could understand how do you take care of a child, because I did not have I don't have any skills. Or I mean, even my nieces and nephews, I wasn't around them long enough to understand the baby stages. And you know, I think Jada was 5, so I understood nothing. And so doing hair, doing all those things, and doing it all wrong, and then being depressed and sad, but then trying to stay encouraged and trying to continue to move forward. So my last step, I think I'm still in the steps. I can't say there's the steps that I think I'm still in the steps, because I'm still trying to learn how to be a teenage mom, how to learn how to be a wife. Now that we got past the 7 years that you talked about, and now we're about to be empty nesters. And it's like, I haven't even had a child in this new, you know, and I'm still, you know, trying to be the new wife. And so it's a lot that I feel like I'm still learning.
VP, what have you done to help keep her encouraged? Because like you said, you're 10 years older, and so you have been through some of the things. So you understand and you saw some of her frustrations. First of all, what did you see? And then what did you do to encourage her, to make sure that she felt that she was your bride?
Well, to be honest, as she was learning, I was learning too.
How so?
I was learning because as I would reiterate to her that you can't compare. This is a new relationship, and the way her and I functioned together was totally different. It was something new to me. It was really a relationship that was truly based on God, and so I was a brand new. My walk was brand new. I hadn't been knowing Christ in maybe like 4 or 5 years before I met her, so I was still learning. So when I met her, it was a different way of doing things. There was different lines of communication. There was, no, we're not going to go to bed upset. We're going to talk this out. So really, she encouraged me a lot of times. So I learned, maybe she did not know this, but I learned a lot from her on how to talk through relationships and how to deal with issues and problems, instead of just putting them on the back burner and either letting them bury away, or get to them at a time where we're heated, and it just throws more fuel on the fire. But I learned a lot from her through her patience with me, and through her communication, and through her passion. She brought a lot of passion to this relationship. So it was something that I had never seen or dealt with before. So it really, it changed my game.
And so now you're newly married. You have not had a chance to have your honeymoon, and now you have not one, but 2 baby mamas.
Yo, 2, yes.
2 baby mamas.
3 kids.
So three kids, you know, 1 who's an adult and 2 who are going out of teenage to adulthood. The question I want to ask, how do you manage the personalities of baby mama and baby daddies that are difficult to work with? Have you, first of all, did you experience any of that?
That's not a question. That's reality.
Yeah.
And if you did, how did you deal with it?
You know, I would say you have to unite your home front. I learned through going through all of this that you have to be united in your home. And what I'm saying is that it doesn't have to be perfect, but you have to work out your issues at home. If you have to, raise your voice just to get it out, or you don't quite know how to handle it, but at least it gets out. But do that in the home.
With who? With the children or the spouse?
No, with your spouse.
Gotcha.
With your significant other. You need to unite on that front and be honest about your frustrations. Mm-hmm. You have to have that honesty, and you have to be real when it comes to dealing with the issues of the blended family. And you have to get them out, and as you get them out, you talk about them, and you guys have to come to an agreement. Mm-hmm. And as you're working on that agreement, once you agree, when you
represents, or when you step out of your home, you don't change that for anybody.
Gotcha.
You got to, it may be raggedy at home, but nobody has to know that. And if you make a decision, whoever is going to represent, because you got to have a representative. And in our home is Renata.
Gotcha.
But that doesn't mean that I don't vent my frustrations and that we don't talk about it behind closed doors.
Gotcha.
So she knows where I stand. She knows how I feel. She knows the issues I struggle with. And I know her issues. So we get them all out. So when we present it, it's in a united front. So we both feel safe and comfortable.
Gotcha.
But you got to do that before you even think about going to baby daddy or baby mama or whoever you're going to deal with. You got to hash that out first before you even think about going to them to deal with them.
Gotcha.
And I would add, know your position. I think it took me a while to understand my position. When I say that is, I was trying to be in the position of mom, when in reality, it's not whether I'm biological mom, bonus mama, whatever mother I am to them, or whatever the children begin to feel the relationship of. But I had to remember that I'm father part 2. I'm not trying to fill a gap of mom, because when you try to fill a gap that's already full, the frustration has to happen because you got 2 authority figures trying to be one, and it doesn't work. But when you jump to the side where you are one, there is nothing to feel. And so I'm father part 2. Although I am more nurturing, he just now has the father figure and the nurturer at the same time now, and that's what the kids get. I'm not trying to fulfill and trying to be, I was never trying to be Daryl's, neither one of the baby mothers. My children have good mothers. It was not my responsibility to come in and take over their relationships, take over their traditions, take over their disciplines, take over their way of treating the children. But when they came here, they were going to follow my husband's traditions, my husband's attitudes, my husband's direction and his guidance. And so that's why when Daryl says the home front, it's beginning to understand what is my position in this relationship. Because when you try, just try to put, you got a full gallon of water and now you're trying to put yourself in that full gallon of water. It's going to spill over and it's going to make a mess.
Absolutely.
And I did that. I'll be the first one to tell you, I thought I was supposed to be this super mom to both my girls. I thought I was supposed to be superwoman to my son. And I started out running the race of trying to challenge him. And it wasn't so much of something I was saying out loud, but it was a feeling. So it was like this edge of competition, this edge of jealousy, this edge of all these things getting mixed in, and I'm leaving him behind. So now he's now competing with a baby mama and a mom and his wife, and now he's trying to handle and maintain composure with 2 people that he don't even have to have this type of frustration. So once I decided, or once I would say blessed to be inspired or encouraged to move out of her seat and move into the seat that I was designed to be in. And once I got in that seat, like Daryl said, we then understood, okay, they're going to receive it better from you. They might not like it from you. And I'll be honest to say that neither one of them for the first, and I think I said this, the time of this, but I can tell you that the first mother of my children, she still don't like me to communicate with her. And we are 10, 11 years in, and she's still, but I still do it, even though I don't like to. I'll be honest to say that because there's so much friction with us, I don't even like to, but I step up to it. Somebody's got to step up to it and make sure that the children have what they need and make sure the best interest of the children are put first. And so I step up to that plate. I call her when graduation comes, and I say, hey, what are we supposed to bring? What would you like us to be? How would you like us to be a part? Conversation is very dry, is very, but then, in the second one, ours tension was so bad till I can remember a time it was so bad. She called my father-in-law on me. It was so bad. And so we haven't talked about, those mixes. So you now have father-in-law, mother-in-law who like first one, but maybe not second one, and they definitely don't like third one, which is me. And you have mother-in-law who loves me, don't love this one, and love that. I mean, so you have all these mixes.
So many mixes.
And then now you got to introduce your kids to new grandmas and new I mean, it when I say blended family, it's some work. It's some work. But like I said, once you decide to move out of just moving into the right position. You got to know, what is my position? If you are the stepmother, although that's a term that I don't use in my house, but when you are in mom's position in here, I have to know that I'm really, although they call me mom, and I'm thankful that they call me mom, but I started, in order for me to get to that place, I had to get in my position.
Thank you for sharing. Mm-hmm. You hit on something really important, which is going to segue into our next topic. Okay. You talked about the first wife, mm-hmm. or the first child's mother, calling your father-in-law, yes. because she doesn't like you. So the next topic is called step family sabotage.
How long we got? Do you have all night? And you don't even need all night. You got all week, because I promise you I got some stories.
I'm going to ask you a question, because I ask everybody this question, mm-hmm. and I want to hear your kick thought on it before I go into this next segment. I heard you talk about some of the things in your home and how you've learned to cope with different things. People want to know, how do you get past the term, I'm fine?
I'm fine.
Yeah.
I don't do I'm fine. I want to be very clear.
she doesn't.
I don't do. It don't work.
No, we're going to talk about this
we're going to talk right
now.
Not tomorrow. And but I can say it's a traditional thing. And, I talked about last time, begin your own traditions in your household. And when you say tradition, I mean begin your vision in your household. And one of our visions was, we will never go to bed mad. I think it was third on our vision when we started our vision out. We will never, and that meant never. And Daryl can tell you, I done tore up some phones. I done did some furniture moving.
Pastor James, she literally took my cell phone one time and tossed it out the window.
Like, I am violent. But I've been blessed because I've been delivered. I'm delivered now. I'm delivered. I don't be throwing stuff, and I don't furniture move. But even after all that furniture moving, and after my blood sugar and all of the temperatures have calmed down, I'm like, you ready to talk now?
See, that's in the home front. That's why I was saying things, I say, metastasize in the home. But as long as it stays in the home, then you create that home front however you choose to work it out. But you got to work it out.
Who's the lion and who's the lamb?
It fluctuates.
It does.
Because sometimes in areas where I know I'm not graced in, I don't mind her being the lion.
Gotcha. And
then in areas where even she may be a little stubborn in, no, we're not doing that. So, in the home, when you're in your home front, it doesn't matter who's a lion. As long as when you walk out that door, like she says, you know your position.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Step family sabotage. Your emotional health is of critical importance when you are faced with challenges of parenting, the pain of separating from past marriages, and stress of intimacy with ex-spouses. Case in point, Your responses to challenges will greatly affect the failure or success of your new family. Although no two families are alike, all have the varying degrees of the following emotions: loss, fear, anger. Some of the things that the step family, and you talked about your ex-wife calling your father on Pastor Renata. Some of the problems are losses. And losses are members having to deal with the loss of the nuclear family. I don't know how long you were in your first marriage or your second marriage, but there's a connection. Even when relationships are broken, there's a connection. And when people lose what they were connected to, if they're not prepared like Pastor Renata, who can throw things, they get angry and they try to sabotage. What do you think of loss? Loss is all members are dealing with the loss of a nuclear family, children grieving with the loss of a parent, fear, children loss of affection, the spouse fear of failure for the second time, and step parents fear rejection of their stepchildren. Talk about, out of those things we talked about, which one do you think, when your ex-wife called your father, that she was facing? Or anger. Anger says both children and step-parents may be angry over a lack of acceptance or because of the financial obligation. What do you think was the cause and reason for some of the disruption?
I think it was, I think a lot of it was control. I think when that other person loses sense of control of the other spouse and they're no longer together, I think that adds a lot of frustration because the other person may still want what they want when they want it, and they don't understand the intricate details of what divorce really means. And sometimes other parties move too fast. They jump into other relationships they're not ready for. They haven't cleared their plate. But I think for that matter, I think it was a sense of control. If I can't get it from you, then I'll go to your dad.
Okay. There's somebody out here watching today who's struggling with someone from their past trying to sabotage their relationship. They use children, they use family members. What would you say to them how to break that sabotaging spirit? How would you encourage them to keep on? Because we just read in these statistics, many of the marriages break up because of children, stepchildren, or because of past relationships with their exes. What would you say to the people to encourage them?
I would say if it is you have to be really honest with yourself. If that's an area that you're struggling with, if you're not over that other person and it's something that you're holding on to, the first step is just being honest. And I think, like we talked about last week, I think counseling is one of the best ways to deal with that, to go get answers on your questions that you ask yourself. Why am I still holding on to this? Why am I still holding on from things of the past? I think counseling or having someone who can guide and lead you to answers that will help you understand what you're struggling with is the first step. I think you really need to really take a deep down, and you got to make that decision. You got to make the decision for yourself whether you're going to take the step forward or whether you're going to stay stuck where you are.
DP, you and I hang out from time to time, and Pastor Renata knows this. There are women who literally follow you and they compliment you over. There are some guys who use that and straddle the fence in the relationship. I'm going to have this and this. Mm-hmm. How did you get through that?
Furniture moving. Tear that phone up. Throw it somewhere. I'm just playing. Sorry. I was trying to help.
First, you got to know what you have at home. And going through 2 divorces, I could tell you that when you go through a divorce, you lose a lot of things.
Talk to me. Financials.
You lose a lot
stability.
of financial. You lose time. You lose energy. It is draining, and it is, it takes you back so far where you have to almost start all over again.
It's not like breaking up with a girlfriend.
No, it's not like breaking up with a girlfriend. When you start at zero, and I mean money out the door, you're spending more money than you had planned to, and it just really takes a lot out of you. And you have to be honest with yourself that divorce is, like I said, mentally draining, physically draining. It is it's really difficult to deal with.
Gotcha.
So that's enough to say move on. I got something good at home.
Gotcha. Very good. So we have a question. Should a person not enter a relationship if they are still hurting from the previous?
I would honestly answer that yes. You have to be honest with yourself because everybody brings...
Yes, they should, or yes, they should not?
No, yes, they should not.
Gotcha.
Enter a relationship until they have a grip or a handle on healing.
Gotcha.
They first need to self-heal.
How do you know when that happens?
You know when that happens when you wake up in the morning and you look forward to what the day is going to bring, as opposed to holding on to things that you wish you could have done differently or things of the past.
Gotcha. Very good. Pastor Renata, talk to us about, in business we have a thing called SWOT. You ever heard of that? Strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. What are some of your strengths?
I think my strength is my foundation of God. I test everything by, am I going to go to hell? That's my test.
That's not a joke. That's not a joke. She's serious about that. I'm serious.
Am I going? If this thing goes, I'm afraid of jail too. I'm afraid of jail, but it's hell first. So I go to jail.
But everyone is not as biblically inclined as you are.
No, it's real, Pastor.
No, strong history of church. She has a grandmother who was one of the generals of the gospel. She was reared in prayer. She was reared in church. How do you say that to someone who wasn't reared in church and don't have the background that you have?
I think it was a learning lesson for me, too, to not be so spiritually just high, because Daryl wasn't. So you're right, because my husband,
Gotcha.
When the pressure is popping hot, and every time I meet with either one of the parents, normally the pressure is popping hot. Being able to love through that pressure, and being able to see the bigger picture, which is a relationship with my children and their father. Gotcha. That's what kept me probably grounded.
Do that, but I literally watched her work through that. Gotcha. And the conversations we would have after the parties would disperse and everyone would leave, we would have conversations about it, and she really worked hard at that.
Mm-hmm.
The relationship, what is the weakness?
My weakness is control.
Not yours, the relationship.
Oh, and all in all of this, control.
Control.
We had, like I think you talked about it. Everybody has authority. We have 3 kids, and you have now, for 1, 3 adults that now have authority. For the other 2, you have 4 that now have authority, and everybody's authority means something, and has to be respected and has to be reared. And so I would say our weakness was control, wanting to. It was always a tug of war. It was always and I can tell you an example. Even today, we just picked up and Joshua's, yes, he's 18, I know, but there are some things that he has to do in our home that's not required there, which every household has their own way of doing it. But here he has to wash dishes before 10 p.m. And so he didn't wash dishes when he got back this week before 10 p.m. And if they're not washed by 10 p.m. tonight, there'll be some furniture moving. But no,
even if he didn't participate in dirtying them up.
10 p.m. Let's be clear. But the control, I think that was our greatest weakness. Daryl wanted to have control. I'm wanting to have control. You got this new father on the other side that wants to now be the head of his household and be in control. You now have this mother who's like, these are my kids, and you ain't their mama. Control. So control was our biggest weakness.
So how do you tell someone out there who's watching it's okay to get in a relationship with a person who has children from a different relationship? How do you tell people watching that it's okay to do that, based off of what you just said?
No, I would say it's okay. And now that I've experienced it, I would say it's okay. But it's all about knowing that there's going to be so many difficulties in marriage. I mean, although we have this difficulty of blended marriage, someone who just having children might have difficulties of finances, and one is gambling it all off and one is straight. I mean, so there's always going to be problems. It's learning how to resolve those problems together. Yeah. No marriage is perfect. And when you understand that this always is our weakness, you start working on the weak. You know, the Lord tells us, that where we are weak, yet He is strong, meaning that we can get guidance from Him in order to help us with those weak areas. And once we release the control, because we had to on this side. So once we released the control and we made and we allowed for them to kind of make some decisions, then we began to be creative with what was open. So, you know, when it came to holidays, we've never had our kids for any holiday. And so that was a control. That's what they want. They wanted to have the kids for the holidays or for this thing. And so we had to release that control over that. And once we did, we got creative with our holidays.
And you have to, because it will grow something inside of you where when you do get the kids, you can't enjoy them. Because you're so upset that you lost that day and you didn't get what you wanted, but you can't stay stuck there, because when you do get the kids the next day or the week after, you can't enjoy them. Gotcha. You're still stuck on that day that you did not get.
Yeah.
And it's not their fault.
And it's not their fault. And believe me, we lost 2 years of our kids' lives from control, because when we got them, we were so stuck on, well, we finally got them. Or it was that bondage that was held on, because there's a remnant of everything that happened. So there was a remnant of control when it got to our house, and now we're wrestling with that control in our own home. So you have to get to a place where you're able to release the thing that's holding you from getting to the next step.
Question: how do you connect with stepkids when a biological parent influences them not to?
Can I take that one? Okay. Can I take that one?
Please.
Please. Call up me. The best way, and when I say this is 10 years, 11 years of learning, I'll say about 8 years of understanding this. The best thing is to be you. Be you, boo. Because what becomes a lie, or what is mystified, or what is fantasized about who you are, the kids will see the truth. So be you.
Yep.
I had to learn to be me. My kids know me for me. They don't know what their mom told them, because I know their mom told them some things, and you know it. And I have to be honest to say, and I know that they told them things because of how the kids treated me. Mm-hmm. So you know that that negativity, or that negative thing about you, negative thing about you has been said. I've ever tried to prove them wrong, but I had to be real. I had to be me. And because I was me, 10 years later, I'm still the same person.
Exactly.
And so now, whatever was said about me, the kids have had the opportunity to start experiencing life, start experiencing stuff, and start becoming mature themselves. And in their maturity, they begin to see that I'm still me. And so that's my answer.
Okay. Next question. How do you grieve and stay hopeful if you are believing God to restore?
Are we saying restore a marriage, or?
How do you grieve and stay hopeful if you are believing God to restore? Divorce. Okay.
So I'll only take this. I've never been through divorce, but I had the opportunity to go through divorce. And let me tell you why I say that. Me and Daryl, I'm honest to say, and this is transparent to say, the first 2 years, maybe 3, even almost 3 years of my marriage was Daryl going through a divorce. And not in the contractual way, because you can do that, but I'm talking about in the emotional, the financial, the physical, the spiritual, and everything that went along with that. The anger, if I can tell you, sometimes when you would bring up the name, or bring up, that name, you could see the hairs on his skin just flare up, like it was, like it was the worst thing that has ever happened to him, or the pain, and it wasn't the worst thing that happened to him, but it was the breakup and the pain of it. So for the first 3 years, really the beginning of my marriage, where I'm in fantasy, or wanted to be in fantasy and honeymoon, my husband was going through a divorce.
Oh, wow.
And not only divorce to one, but divorce to two. And because he didn't take the time from the first to the second to get through the divorce, now he's trying to divorce at the same time double. And so the first 3 years, I'll say it was very difficult, but hope. Lots of tears, lots of praying, lots of being around the right people at the right time. Yeah. Taking my spa times, my me times. There was a time when I went to Virginia for a 3-day just weekend, just praying for 3 days.
And I would say, why are you going?
Because
go for 3 days to pray for what?
Well, when you
not
feel
knowing.
when you feel like you're not loved,
yeah.
and you came into a marriage, could only desire for love, and they're trying to grieve and, take off the stains of what was old. My God, that pulling of that skin, that was some difficult things to watch, and to have hope, encourage the person to just put all of what you are feeling lost in, or what you're feeling, because grieving is nothing but a disconnect or a loss of something. Whatever that loss is, give it over to God and trust Him for it. The Word tells us that, whom shall I fear? Meaning that, what should I fear if I'm willing to give all of me over and be honest with God? If there's no one you can be honest with, you can be honest with God. I mean, from the beginning to the end, every inch, the awful times, the hurtful times. When I lost my child, I was mad with God.
Talk about that for just a minute.
I told God, and I mean it like I said it, I was angry, and I mean angry. There would be times that I would be looking out the window in my ways of where I'm thinking I'm looking at God and angry, like I could look at you or look at a touch of it, a taste of it. Why would you give me 4 months of feeling life and then you would just snatch it away in 2 seconds? And I couldn't understand it. And I grieved, I cried, I was angry, I was mad. I told him everything that was going on in me. And when I didn't, and sometimes I didn't think he heard me because I couldn't believe that there's a God that can hear me that would take my baby away. But in that, he heard every word. And in my anger, he began to subside it with love. He began to put people around me. That's how I got to Life Worship Center. So he began to put people around me that had hope, that were growing. He put me in an atmosphere of growth. And so nothing but the atmosphere changes you. And so that's my way. I can only tell you my way of how I developed hope, was being in an atmosphere where hope and growth was happening.
Very good. I want to ask you a question. I want to get personal. You just hit on it. I didn't know if I can go in that door. So you have 3 stepchildren, and you want one of your own, because every mother wants a child of their own.
Yes.
How do you cope with that?
I would say honesty. Have a good girlfriend, a real good girlfriend, because there are going to be some friends around you that where their hope was deferred and it showed up, and your hope is still deferred, and you're trying to figure out when it's going to show up. And then you have to not only have hope deferred, but then you got to love someone else's children who hate you. I mean, hate you, not don't like you. I'm talking about hate you. And you got to love their children. And when I say love them, you have to pour into them love. You have to financially be a blessing to them. You got to spiritually be a blessing to them. You got to encourage them when you see distress or pain, knowing that you might not, or I will say for me, might not ever have the chance to do that with your own, ever. And so I would encourage you, get a good girlfriend, one that you can call in the middle of a night. Tell your spouse. It took me a long time to express it to Daryl, because I felt like I would hurt his feelings if I was to say, well, you already got your children. I always felt that would really hurt his feelings. But once we built our communication, I have to say built, because I couldn't say it 2 years, I think maybe 2 years ago, I couldn't have said that because we wasn't there yet. But now I can say it, and he can appreciate what I said and help me change my language, help me see what God is taking us, and help me see where God can do for us. So continuing to hope. For those that are around me, know that I still believe. I mean, although I'm aging, although what the doctors have said, that this can't happen and it shouldn't happen, and all these things, I still have hope. So I love hope stories. I watch stories of people who are having babies. I try to stay, again, atmosphere of hope. I've been blessed because the ministry that we're in, you always see growth here, like whether it's a new family coming in, or Pastor James or Pastor Ursula is preaching or teaching on growth and going through a storm and how the difficulties of moving forward. I mean, I've watched our media team. I'm an observer to the musicians, to our music ministry. I just see growth all the time, and that gives me hope.
We got about another minute. I want to ask these questions. Thank you for sharing. So we talked about holidays, sharing. We talked about discipline. You throwing things and you having your way, and 10 o'clock, dish is done. One of the challenges that, and the SWAT threats to the household, oftentimes when, people get married or have a child out of wedlock, child support. Because there's sometimes that the ex-spouse is trying to do one or two things. One is trying to ruin the relationship because they keep asking and asking and asking and taking and taking. And the other one is they completely rely on the ex-spouse. If I lose my job, I don't care. I got my child support. I'll just go back and ask for some more, especially when they see that you're living well, because you guys live well and you have good careers. You being an attorney, you being one of the leading camera people or photographers and authors and the journalists for one of the major networks, people see that you live well. How did you not allow child support to impact you?
Can I add a third one too, Pastor James?
Please.
People also, and of course I experienced the great thing about being up here. I experienced it. They will also say, "I don't need no child support, so you can't have no control."
They said you can't.
They don't want child support, so you can't have no control.
Oh, they reject child support.
So there's a level of you don't pay no money over here, so you have no say over here.
So which of those?
So we've got two of those. So I'll let Daryl kind of answer. We had one that was like, it was a way of, it was another way of control. Yep. That if, I don't need your money. So you can't talk, you can't say nothing or do nothing or have any control of how this goes down. And so that's how the holidays, and that's why we didn't have holidays and those things, because it was a way, as a tool.
See.
Yes, that money was the tool to keep how the control happened, but it's controlled. So it's three, I would say it was three. And so, I'm sorry, to answer your question, I'll let Daryl answer that one.
That's a loaded one. That's we would need a whole nother session to really go into details. But I guess I can best sum it up. Sometimes I think Renata and I, we walked quietly because there was a lot of things that we did not have. The things that we have now, we didn't have. God blessed us with this in the last 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. He gave us back everything that we lost.
Gotcha.
But
so during your storm, child support doesn't stop, right?
No, it doesn't stop. But God, He made a way, and we didn't let child support get in the way of taking care of our kids. Mm-hmm. We knew that we didn't have control over certain things, but when we had our opportunity, we made it grand, and we didn't settle for no, you can't. If it wasn't going to be a day where we can't pick them up here, okay, we'll get them there. Mm-hmm. And we were consistent with it. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of being the crow and allowing the other person to have that control just to keep your children out of the way of being used as pawns. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times we would take the back road, but we would be consistent on when we were going to get them.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of times you just have to go through and take care of one another, because it's very hurtful. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's really, really painful, especially when you want to see your kids. But you have to do it in a certain way, just to keep them out of the tug of war ish of it. And it takes maturity and it takes time, because it didn't. For the first 3 or 4 years, we didn't see our kids a lot of times.
Gotcha.
And that was a very difficult thing to deal with. Mm-hmm. But we still remained consistent in our actions and consistent on when we were going to get them.
Because there are some parents out there, or some people who have had children will say, if I can't see them, I'm not going to do anything for them.
Oh.
No, that was not. No.
Well, that wasn't as.
Yeah, that wasn't that.
And I just say because.
And I'm not saying that she was, but how do you encourage them?
Yeah.
That is the
because
that
you
is
don't
the
see 'em.
hurtful. That's the hurtful part of it, and that hurt can drive you to that place.
Oh yes.
That hurt can take you there without you even knowing how far, or even knowing that came out of your mouth.
Gotcha.
Because it could be something that one person said, and that's your retaliation to dealing with what was said at that time. So a lot of times, some things are said out of anger, and that's why I said in the beginning we had to be quiet.
Yeah.
As bad as you wanted to say something, as bad as you wanted to act out, as bad as you wanted to fight back, a lot of times we just had to be quiet. And being quiet, being consistently quiet, and not going to that place where they wanted to go, is power in being quiet. Because if you arguing and you're saying things and that person doesn't respond, there's no fuel being added, and you can't argue with yourself.
That's right.
And also I would add, remember an image is being birthed. I say that because I remember our kids, I can't remember, but I think we were going to McDonald's or something, and Jada and Joshua both said it, and oh my God, I almost melted. But they was like, well, we won't get anything to eat because we know you can't afford it.
Oh, wow.
Because that's the language that is spoken, because the way child support goes. And when I say that thing hit like a ton of bricks, and, for the first moment, my first reaction was, first of all, get your life together, and I can afford some fries. And matter of fact, I'll upsize it. But that's what I wanted to do. But I had to remember it was not them, but it was what the atmosphere that was taught. And so even now, I want to say even maybe 3 or 4 years ago, probably the last time our kids made us feel that way. Because for the first, 6-7 years, they felt like we were just poor, dirt poor. And it was very hurtful. But, we just had to, like Daryl said, just stay consistent, be creative. Don't talk about money. If you're talking about money, talk about investments. Talk about, teach them how to handle and maintain money. Change the narrative.
Change the atmosphere.
You have to change that narrative because, unfortunately, it is two different upbringings. And so you create the narrative in your home that you want to continue as a legacy. Don't stoop down to what has been perceived of you, but stand up to who you are. And so I would just encourage those who have that difficulty, and I say it from an attorney because I watch the men that come through there, and I watch in child support court the difficulties of how they try to put child visitation and child support together. But I just encourage you to continue to do your part, and continue to ask God to help it. Like, speak to your finances. Remember the tools you have in your bag. Don't ever get rid of your tools because you have an angry side over here or a controlling side over here. You have God, and you can pull and use your tools, your weapons. I think in Discovery class, they're talking about the armor of God. Pull out your armor. Pull out your weapons, which is your words, to say there's wealth and riches in my house. And God will give you overabundance of resources that will not only overflow, but it'll be enough to pay child support, and you don't have to go back and say, I told you so. So now
that's a perfect.
I don't,
to add to.
We're, like you said, we might have we are moving forward and growing, and God is blessing and blessing. But I've never went back and say, I told you so. I've never went back and flaunted in front of them. I've never done it, and I've never let my kids feel like I flaunt what I have. I'm always like, only God. Only God.
And you don't have to make your kids a point.
Yeah.
Very good.
You don't have to prove to the other side, because you'll spin your wheels and trying to prove them wrong. And we had a couple battles of that, and we had to learn. You have to learn really quick. If something is not working, you really have to analyze it and say, okay, I have to be honest, that didn't work. We need to try something different. And you don't have to prove to them or make your kids a point trying to prove to the other parent that is acting out this way, try to prove their point right.
Amen. And thank you. So in our closing, I got two things I want to share with the audience. There's two ways to view marriage, especially when there's a new marriage or a remarriage. There's a wrong way and there's a right way. The wrong way is believing that you can go into this marriage and make it, as you said, a fairy tale. Make everything right. Everybody's going to be happy. That's the wrong way. The right way says, I cannot be the perfect parent or make others happy all the time. I will rely on the Holy Spirit who gives me wisdom and love to respond Christ-like in all matters of my family relationship. You said one thing that would really stuck out tonight as we close. You said you don't try to make it a point to remember the past or one-up one another. I think Apostle Paul wrote it best. He wrote it best. In Philippians 3:13 and 14. He says, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it. He says, but one thing I do. He says, forgetting what is behind and moving forward to what is ahead. I press toward the mark and the goal to win the prize for which God has called me. Heavenward or heavenward in Christ Jesus. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank the Priors for your transparency. I know that you've helped many people. I know that there's many people who will open up their conversation pocketbooks tonight, and they will make a withdrawal. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being transparent. Please make sure, ladies and gentlemen, that you like this site, that you subscribe to this site. Please ring the bell. Please share us. Amen. And ladies and gentlemen, it is Mother's Day this Sunday. We want all of you who can and will to make a special video for your significant other. And we will air those videos live here on Sunday morning. Sons and daughters for your mothers, your grandmothers and aunties, sisters, daughters, the same alike, husbands and dudes, whether you're married or not, for that special lady or ladies in your life. Amen. Again, thank you for joining us tonight. We'll meet you back here Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. for a great service. We have a special guest coming this Sunday, a national recording artist, 2 of them. And then meet us back here next Wednesday, same time. And also for prayer, our prayer lines are now on Wednesday evenings, 6:45 to 7:15. Check us out. God bless you. See you soon.
This is Pastor James. I really hope that you've enjoyed this broadcast. Listen, this is a part where everybody can play a part. This is a part where you can sow your seed, get it in the ground. There's 3 ways that you can sow. The first way that you can sow, you always have to be on site or mail your envelope into 130 Commerce Parkway, Garner, North Carolina 27526. The second way that you can sow is go to our website, rccraleigh.org/give, and you can sow any amount. And the third way that you can sow, which is becoming our most popular way, why everybody's into technology, is to text any amount to 919-756-7933. Let me run it down again. The first way is mail it in to 130 Commerce Parkway, Garner, North Carolina. The second way is go to our website, rccraleigh.org/give. And the third way, which has become our most popular way, is to text any amount to 919-756-7933. Listen, God bless you. See you soon. God bless you. I'm James Rowland, the Senior Pastor for Life Worship Center. I pray that you're having a blessed season. I would like to invite you to our online services every Wednesday at 7:15, where we're going to teach the Word of God. Right now, we're in a season about relationships, and I would love for you to join in with us. We have a special presentation just for you coming this Wednesday, and every Sunday online at 10:30 while we're doing this epidemic situation. And we would love for you to join in, sign on, subscribe, like us, share us. God bless you during this season. I pray that you will stay strong, stay blessed, and stay under the blessings of God.